Hello and welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast about trends, big ideas, and exciting news in the world of EdTech. Today's roll call. I'm Ron Houtman.
And I'm Keith Tramper.
And I'm Sarah Wood. And today we have our special guest joining us. That will be Suzy Ruskusky, who is the Augmentative and Alternative Communication Consultant here at Kent ISD. And we'll be talking about the transformative power of augmentative and alternative communication, also known as AAC, and giving voice to those who are often unheard. So it'll be a good conversation today.
And as we always do, we wanted to start out with a question for our podcast here today. And the question is, outside of education, tell us about one other job you had. We'll start with you, Sarah.
So when I was in college, I had an on-campus job, and I was a dispatcher for the campus safety department. And that often surprises people, but I was not someone who was out walking around. I was the one in the office taking all the phone calls, radio calls, all that. There's interesting people in this world.
So telling people where to go, you mean?
What to do, documenting it. It's like one of those things, like I couldn't tell you how many times I've called 911 in my life. You know, where not very many people can say they've ever called 911, which is a good thing, you know?
That's pretty cool.
So I think you guys know this too. So I was also a dispatcher for a local sheriff's department, 911 dispatcher and supervisor for a while. So that was another job. So Sarah and I both had the same job where we got to tell people where to go all the time and listen and do some other things like that. So it's an interesting job. It makes you sometimes question humanity. I think it's probably the easiest way to say it.
I say I learned a lot of empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the big thing. You learn a lot of empathy. Like, it's not my job to judge. My job is to get you people to help you. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right, Keith.
Nice. As you say that, I don't want to minimize because I think that's a really important role. But all I can picture right now is Buddy the Elf. Hello, Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite color?
There may have been some of that. You never know. It was entertaining at times.
Yeah. So I've had plenty of jobs, but one that I wanted to share was I was a swim lesson instructor at the college that I went to for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So if you've ever tried to keep a 3-year-old afloat, but I have to say, like, it was such a fun job. Just like what you see with our littles when you go into their classrooms, they grow within the day, right? Like day to day, you see them pick up things and all of a sudden they're like swimming freestyle across the pool. And it was just so cool. In fact, like during that time, I was also, pursuing a career in engineering. And it sort of made me realize, like, I like working with people too much. I really like working with kids. So it actually made me switch my major from engineering to education.
Cool.
I remember watching my kids take swim lessons and being, bless those instructors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think you got to have your whole head on a swivel the whole time to make sure that nobody is doing what they are not supposed to do, which is go under for a long period of time. So
it's frequent.
Yeah.
You can't travel too far from we had little platforms that went in the pool.
Yeah.
So you step away and they always have to be within arm's reach.
Yeah. I still think the one that freaks me out the most is when you're teaching like newborn-ish kiddos, like maybe 2-month-olds, how to swim, which I think is really important, right? But those videos I've seen, it's terrifying to me that, you're basically just dropping a kiddo in a pool, but they figure it out really quick how to like flip over and get their head above the water. So
they were in a pool for 9 months.
Yeah, I don't know anything about
pretty naturally at that point.
All right. And with that, here's our first very short commercial break.
Hey there. Are you tired of attending professional learning sessions that leave you feeling bored and uninspired? Well, get ready for a unique and engaging learning experience. The Peel in a Box is our spin on a subscription box, but with learning at the core. The Remse Doodle for Your Noodle Peel in a Box will not only get you excited to learn about sketchnoting and how you can leverage it in teaching and learning, but it will also provide you with many ready-to-use resources, a collaborative learning environment, and all the materials you need to get started in your sketchnoting journey. Whether you're new to sketchnoting or have had some prior experience, You will walk away from this learning with a handful of tools in your teaching tool belt. Register for one of the 3 available cohorts today. One starts in August, one in November, and the third starting in February. To register, visit bit.ly/DFYN-register and join the sketchnoting revolution and draw your path to success.
Hey PDXers, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget that this year's PDX closes on June 26. To earn sketches, you'll need to complete all of your responses by then. We want to know what resonates with you about our conversation with Suzy. Let us know at bit.ly/FTPO-PDX.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to talk to today Suzy Ruskusky, who is our augmentative and alternative communication consultant at Kent ISD. So we're going to start out with Suzy. Can you introduce yourself a little bit, where you came from, what you've been doing for, I don't know, however many years you've been in education, and what you do and why you do it?
Sure. Thanks, Ron. So like you said, I'm Suzy Ruskusky. I am the augmentative and alternative communication consultant, as well as the assistive technology consultant at Kent ISD. So I've been in this role, I think it's 6 years I've lived here, or coming on 6 years. My background is as a speech language pathologist, and prior to moving here to Grand Rapids area in Michigan, I lived in Chicago and worked in Chicago public schools for close to 10 years. So in my role there, I worked on the assistive technology team, went around the city. I also was a speech language pathologist in the school. So it was a great transition when I moved here, because at Kent ISD, I am traveling around supporting our local districts, our charter schools, our private schools, really kind of working with the staff and the students and the families to support communication as well as assistive technology needs.
Yeah, it's quite a big trip from Chicago to up this way. I mean, we probably have very similar needs, but again, very different when you think about the sheer number of students you might have in a Chicagoland versus a Grand Rapids metro, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's diversity in both settings, a wide range. Here I've noticed I'm out in the country one day and then I'm in the city. About 15, 20 minutes later, I learned that everything is about 20 minutes away here. But I think when you do a little cross parallel between the two environments, our students have similar needs. So based upon where they live, they have different needs at times, but really we are prioritizing their communication, and everybody is working to support them to be independent.
Okay, great. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, so we all hold the name technology in our titles, right? But I guess if we looked at ed tech, we're looking at swimming in the shallow end and lots of breadth. But when we get into assistive tech and into augmented and alternative communication, it gets into the deep end. Like, it can get really deep into certain areas. And I'm wondering if you could kind of explain to our listeners what AAC, or augmentative and alternative communication, actually is, as if they know nothing about it.
So I think I'm often explaining this to family members and my own husband, where I'm like, it's this really long title and it sounds really fancy. AAC it's a type of assistive technology. Assistive technology is this huge umbrella. We're supporting reading, writing, math, but AAC is supporting communication. And what we really are trying to get at is leveling the playing field for our students, which is the goal of every piece of assistive technology. We're not trying to give them an unfair advantage, but specifically with AAC, we're giving our students a voice. We're giving them a way to communicate their thoughts, their wants, their needs. And ultimately, we're working towards autonomous communication. So we are supporting our students and our individuals so that they can say whatever they want to whoever they want and whenever they want it. It's not an overnight fix, but it's a lifelong goal. We all know how communication is so impactful and meaningful of part of all of our days. I mean, just thinking about how many times you've communicated already today for a variety of functions with a variety of people. Some of it's positive, some of it's sarcastic, some of it's negative. But imagining if you didn't have that opportunity to communicate during the day and what your life would be like. So AAC really it's putting a voice for our students and our individuals so that they can be heard and they can enjoy and have an experience of a meaningful life.
Yeah, communication is so critical to just the way we live. So I'm glad that we have people like you that are knowledgeable in how to help everybody, communicate. So, as you talk about AAC technologies, what do those look like? What are some of the most common things that you do with AAC, and how do you choose the right kind of AAC technology to help your students out?
So that's a great question that I get on a daily basis, which is a big part of my role. I think you mentioned it before, we all have technology in our title. So with assistive technology, I often will tell people, like, cover up that word technology and think about that word assistive. That's what we're getting at. So technology in terms of assistive technology in AAC isn't the latest and greatest item. It's not what you can just go buy at Best Buy or get on Amazon or some other vendor like that. We match to figure out what the student needs based on their own needs, like who are they communicating, what are they expected to communicate, and then also their physical abilities as well. So it's also a matter of having an array of tools. So all of us have multiple ways to communicate. We might use facial expressions, gestures, we're texting, we're emailing, we're on the phone, we're using our own voice. We want our students to also have multiple tools. So it could and should be a range of items if they're able to use them. So it could be something as simple as a paper and a pencil. It could be something just visual supports, which are paper-based. And it can be much more robust where they are touching a screen and it's changing and there's a lot of information stored on there that they can retrieve quickly. Often, too, we have individuals who are typing to get their messages across, and then there's a voice added to that component. So we really want to see our students using multiple tools and really identifying what's the fastest and most efficient way for them to communicate in that moment to that partner they're communicating to.
Yeah, it sounds like, every single student is an individual and has their own specific needs, and that's like a huge part of your job, I'm sure, is figuring out what those specific things are to help them communicate and do so efficiently.
Yeah, it's hard too because we often find a tool and we want to make that tool fit to the student because we're like, oh my God, if we can get them to use this, this is going to unlock the doors. But, we always say we have to look at the student first and then the tools. And when we use that mindset, it kind of gets everybody on the same page that's supporting our students so we can understand, hey, why is this tool a good fit or why are we going to try it? It's not just, hey, I have this item and I'm going to make you use it because I, as the adult, think it's the right fit for you, but working with our students to figure out what's going to be the best fit to set them up for success.
Yeah, I love that. The student first, technology second.
Yeah. It really reminds me of the when the iPads first came out, right? About how if everything's an iPad, nail hammer kind of analogy here, right? So we've seen that, even though much of the AAC devices that we see, they're iPad based, but at the very outset when iPads first showed up, it was like the answer to every education problem for students with special needs was an iPad. We found out pretty quickly that touch screens don't work for every kid. And so it goes back again to, what is the best for that kid student versus, hey, I've got the shiny black rectangle that'll guarantee solve every educational problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The iPad's been amazing for AAC and opening up accessibility in terms of having more access to equipment, but it's still not the right fit. And then even what goes on that iPad is a whole nother layer. So sometimes we'll get, requests that say, hey, I just want an iPad for communication. There's nothing really on there.
Right.
So we have to look at the software and the tools that are also going to go on there, and they have to speak and connect to make sure it's the right fit.
Yeah. I know it's been a lifelong struggle, right? I've been in the same situation as you have too. And I think the rest of us, the same thing is where I just got to make this one thing work. And we know that it's not always the right thing for that. Just kind of thinking about, how important communication is for students. I know, having worked with students with disabilities for years now, that many of our students that don't have the ability to communicate verbally, you can see their frustration level get extremely high, which leads to other behaviors, right? How do you, as a consultant, really promote that understanding and patience around individuals who don't use AAC toward those who rely on AAC for communication? How can we make people have an understanding that they need to pause and listen and pay attention to the person while they're typing out a 3-sentence answer?
So one of my favorite things I love to do is have people kind of experience an immersive experience with AAC. Whenever we're looking at trainings and specifically looking at the tools, I have the staff and the family members use the tools that the student is expected to use. Often we get this AAC device, it's kind of the shiny box, they think, and they put it in front of a kid, thinking it's magically going to unlock. But really what we do is, as communication partners, especially too for our users who are new to using AAC, who might be what we call emergent communicators, we model on the devices. And by modeling, meaning we are touching and we are talking in the same way that we expect our students to speak back to us. When a baby is born, we're talking to them. We're not expecting that a 2-week-old baby is going to talk back to us. But over time, we are hopeful and anticipate that we might get verbal speech back because that's what we've been modeling. So it's the same with when we're using AAC. We are modeling and we're showing that this system is meaningful and they can communicate effectively with it. We're not demanding it. We're not saying, do this, find this. We are just showing, hey, this is a way to communicate. And then we get that back from our users. So we say, if we speak AAC, we will get AAC back.
Right. Thank you for that. I've witnessed, and I'm sure we've all seen this before, where people have not been experienced in having communication with someone with AAC. You can see with their body language, a lot of times they just get very impatient. But I think putting somebody through the walk in my shoes is really helpful. It seems like such a great strategy. Sarah?
Yeah, and that kind of made me think. Suzy had shared a video with us recently called The Power of Augmentative and Alternative Communication. It was just a short 1-minute video, and we'll make sure that we link it in the show notes so you can take a look at it. But it stated that the average person speaks 4,500 words a day, and really how communication devices can really help empower those without those verbal abilities to share their voice. And what I loved is how at the very end it stated, just because you can't speak does not mean you have nothing to say. And I was like, that is such a powerful way to end that. And kind of like what Ron was saying, it made me start thinking, maybe not just the communication between the teacher and the student, but how can AAC be utilized like in that student to student interaction to maybe between someone who is verbal and maybe someone who's nonverbal, or maybe two students who are using AAC devices to get that communication going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of, communication, especially for our students don't want to just talk to teachers all day. They don't want to just talk to adults. Part of the school experience is forming relationships. One of my favorite things to do, there's a student I'm actually working with right now in their team, is her ability to kind of tell secrets with her friends. Thinking about that, like going out to recess and whispering in the corner. If you don't have a voice and your peers are sitting there waiting and they're like, she doesn't say anything, over time we start to ignore them, and our students and our peers kind of get left to the side, and they're not necessarily brought along, or they're just sitting and kind of waiting. One of the best things I love, and I get really excited when the humor and the personality comes out in students. And I think that's one of the best things, is that with AAC, we can see the person behind the disability. We can see that they are a person and they have something important to say. Sometimes it's sarcastic, sometimes it's rude, sometimes it contains profanity, and that's okay. We all know that 4-letter words get thrown around schools every once in a while. It's okay for the AAC user to use that. There can be a separate conversation about what are the right words that we use in school. But if a kid's mad and they're going to say it, I'm excited if they've used their device, because they seize that opportunity to comment. Sometimes it's even funny just to hear like a kid be like, that's gross. I witnessed that in a cafeteria one time. And you know what? That lunch was gross, disgusting, those types of words. Like, thinking around, what is everybody else saying? Those thoughts and those feelings are kind of in our students, and they just need an outlet. They need a way to be able to communicate.
I love that, and how you mentioned the cafeteria, because that is just a natural place where conversation takes place. And I think going back to what Ron was saying about having that patience and understanding, because if that student is maybe nonverbal and they have their device to help them communicate, they're still also eating, and then they're trying to communicate. So it just might take a little bit longer. So that patience is imperative.
Tell them to don't AAC with your mouth full. I mean, that seems like
Don't
I'd love to be able
AAC
to.
with your mouth full.
I mean, you could do both. That'd be great. You can. I mean, maybe I should be able to do that someday.
I mean, devices come back sticky, the screens, the cases, but I mean, look at a regular Chromebook. I guarantee there's some sticky things on Chromebooks around the county.
Yeah, we always talk about, this invisible substance that just comes out of kids' fingers. We don't know where it comes from. It's like it's an anomaly, right? It's a mystery. So
it's gross.
It's why they're making disinfectant wipes in industrial size, especially for schools. So when we just think about, what we've talked here, Suzy, what are some of the things that we didn't really talk about that you want people to know about AAC?
I think a lot of it too, and I talk with, speech pathologists a lot, is making sure that people are okay to question kind of the myths around AAC and not getting upset if somebody asks a question that we just know the answer to. It's part of the learning curve. So, it's still a myth that if you were to use an AAC device, it might stop you from speaking. There's been comments before like, oh, he would just talk if he wanted to. He's just lazy. The reality is our students have something to say, and if they could say it, they would. So I think that's a really big myth. We often see, kind of paralleling it with you guys in your world of UDL and what that looks like. One size doesn't fit all, especially from that assistive technology lens. So we will go into programs and we'll see where a lot of kids are using the same thing or have access to the same thing. But the question is, are they independent with it? Is it functional for them? And making sure we're working with the team that it's okay if your universal communication support doesn't work for a student. It doesn't mean that they don't get communication. It doesn't mean we have to move their location. It just means that we have to take a little bit deeper dive and a more personalized look at that student.
And I love how you said that there about taking a more personalized look at the student. And I'm sure, and with all the experiences you shared at the beginning from your introduction, that you have some funny stories to share or just ones that kind of warm your heart. Do you have any AAC stories that you would like to close us out with here that just maybe funny things students have said or experiences? I know you mentioned the cafeteria.
I could go on for days because it's probably my favorite part of being able to talk with families and caregivers and teachers. I definitely have emotional stories, but I won't do that because it's probably the one gut puncher that gets me emotional. A story I often share is back when I was a speech pathologist in schools. I used to, and it was on Fridays, I would have a few students who were using very robust systems, a student who had cerebral palsy, a student who had a pediatric stroke, and another individual with a degenerative condition. But I would bring them in for a social group so that they could communicate with each other using their devices. And it was just a fun time. It was games, it was snacks, even though we weren't supposed to bring in snacks and candy. But one girl was always just mad. Like I would go to pick her up and we'd walk down to my office and she was just mad. And she always had this grump face. And I brought them into my little office at the time and I said, hey, what do you guys want to say to her? And we'll call her Jasmine. I said, what do you want to say to Jasmine? And her friend, Tina, who was always really quiet, even with her communication device and kind of wanted to hide inside herself. I said, you guys want to be here. What do you want to say to Jasmine? So Tina, who was really quiet with her device, starts formulating her message and we're patiently waiting and waiting. I'm like, what is she going to say? And she looked at Jasmine and she said, fix your face.
Fix your face?
It was, and I just looked and I'm like, the other friend that was there, he made this loud vocalization and was laughing and he practically fell out of his chair. And it was just a moment. And she actually, Jasmine looked up and she was like, oh, I can't, like you could see the shock and awe. Not only that someone would say that to her, but that Tina would say this to her. And that's just one of those moments where I was like, and you know what? She did need to fix her face. Like it was fun in my room. It was a Friday afternoon. So it was just a great opportunity to see, where that peer interaction is important and being able to kind of just say like what you want to say.
Hopefully she fixed her face from that Friday forward then and enjoyed her time with you.
And such a simple message that says so much, right? That's awesome. All right, Suzy, is there any way that, people want to know more about you, what are the best ways that people can find out about you, services that you offer for our Kent area districts? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So best way is probably through email, and then also through our assistive technology lending library. We are very fortunate in Kent ISD to have a really robust lending library for assistive technology that all of our educators have access to in order to support and trial equipment with their students in special education. You know, we don't loan out the equipment so that students keep it forever, but we loan it so that you try it essentially before you buy it and make sure it's a really good fit. So we have great resources at the Assistive Technology Lending Library, which is part of REMC, and back in that same area over at the ISD. But email is the best way.
All right. Thank you very much. And today I think we're just going to call this Fix Your Face Friday for all of us. We are all smiling, even though you can't see it on the podcast. We do appreciate you coming on today, Suzy. It's great to hear your story and the things that you do for our students that we have, and parents, and everybody else that you encounter in Kent ISD in our service area. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Suzy.
That's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. Thanks for tuning in. Our special thanks today to Suzy Ruskusky, the Kent ISD AAC consultant. And a big shout out to our For the Purpose Of podcast PDX community. You can learn more at bit.ly/FTPO-PDX.
Have you ever had an interesting job? We'd love to hear from you. We always welcome your feedback too. Email us at edtech@kentisd.org. You can find all things edtech at bit.ly/IamEdtech. And if you like For the Purpose Of, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend. Catch you next time on For the Purpose Of.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD. It is produced by Ron Houtman, Sarah Wood, and Keith Tramper. Our theme music is Neon Nights by Scott Holmes Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Session.
Hello, and welcome to... My name is Ram. I got a podcast. People listen to my... I got the best raps ever.
This song is titled...
Will you spell that, please?
Good afternoon. I accidentally spilled beet juice. I know of all the things in the world I could have spilled on my keyboard. It looked like a crime scene on my desk when my 6th hour walked in, and now it's a hot pink liquid trapped inside of it. Would there be a way that I could get a new keyboard? It's still working, it just smells like beets. Soon to smell like rotten beets, which I'm sure will be glorious. I'm very sorry to bother you with a silly request, and I promise to be more responsible human. So,
I like it.
Oh man, that's
good
a good
story.
one. Yep.